Whoa, 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 whoa. You're gonna blow a knee out there. Squats are one of the best compound movements for your legs, predominantly for your quads, for your glutes, and your hamstrings are a major stabilizer in the movement.
Once you have excellent mobility and don't have any muscular imbalances, then you're ready to squat.
Nice job. Squats are a phenomenal exercise for anybody trying to increase their power, glute strength, quad strength, and hamstring stabilizing muscles. Let's see a perfect squat this time. You then notice a squat starts with the head staying neutral over the shoulders, always keeping the shoulders back, engaging the core. You're gonna notice that as a common theme with most exercises. And she starts the movement off with her hips, hinging the hips back and sitting in a chair. That's gonna allow her knees to not shoot forward and stay right behind her toes. It's okay if the knees shoot forward towards the end of a squat, but not in the beginning of the squat. So notice how her hips go back first and her knees follow back, versus starting a squat with your knees going forward. That's gonna cause a lot of strain in the knees, unwanted strain in the knees and in front of the shins. So instead, starting the movements with the hips, sticking the butt out first, like you're sitting in a chair, keeping good posture the whole time as she goes down. And once she gets towards the bottom, her knees start to slowly hinge forward, but never going beyond the toes. Another big thing is, as she squats down, you want to ensure that most of the weight is on her heels. So pushing the heels into the ground as she comes up to drive her weight up versus rolling to the toes. That's another way you can really put strain on the knees. And you see a lot of people doing squats incorrectly by rolling their weight to their toes. And this comes down to proper mobility. Now, a lot of times you may have excellent flexibility in your hips, but one of the things that causes your knees to shoot forward, no matter how hard you try, and what people don't think about is the Achilles tendon that can get tight. You know, if you wear flat shoes or if you sit behind a desk all day. So let's show you a little trick you can try to use with your squats to help you eliminate that anterior tilt with your knees. If you ever notice yourself doing a squat like this where you are rolling forward and your hips are loose but your Achilles tendons and the back of your calves are tight right above your heels, we can always try your squats with heel plates. Make sure the heel plates are not super high off the ground. These are just 5-pound barbells we're using here. That's going to allow Alexis to stretch out her Achilles tendon just a little bit more, kind of like that high heel effect, where she's able to go down just a little bit farther without rolling the weight to her toes. So everything else is the same. Fundamentally, weight's on her heels. She starts the movement with her hips. Her posture is great, but the heel plates just allow her to keep more of the weight on her heels versus shifting the weight to her toes and allowing her knees to shoot forward, causing that unwanted knee pain. Not everybody is ready for bodyweight squats just quite yet. If you experience any sort of back pain, knee pain, ankle pain, or just have poor posture while you're squatting and you don't have the optimal mobility to squat yet, the stability ball is a great way to squat correctly without putting any load on your lower back by having a tilt forward. So notice the ball positioning is in Alexis's lower back, just above her tailbone. And everything else fundamentally is the same, but you notice as she goes down, her shoulders still back, head still neutral. There's no pelvic tilt forward at the waist, which is typically natural with a squat. The weight is still on her heels, driving herself up as she comes up. And in order to stay on her heels, she pushes her butt back into the wall, into the ball. So as she comes up, the weight's on her heels and her knees never hinge forward at all. They stay over her ankles the entire time. As she goes down, the ball is completely supporting her back, so she makes sure that there's no strain in the lower back. It sits on her back the whole time, keeping it nice and flat and supporting it with a lot of cushion. Despite what many people may believe about squats, they're actually such a great exercise for you. They're not bad for your knees, and they're definitely not bad for your lower back.
However, they do strengthen your glutes and legs, your core, and help you become more powerful all around.
Almost everybody should be able to perform a squat correctly. We're going to help you find the right way that works best for you. Before we get into more squat variations with weight, I like to go over a couple different variations with your body weight that angle different areas of your legs with your foot positioning being different. So first, let's talk about the Sumo Squat. One of my personal favorites since I have a hip impingement, and keeping my feet straight actually hurts my hips when I get to the bottom of my squat. So the Sumo Squat's a great way for many people to squat while keeping the toes slightly pointed out, 45 degrees out, and keep the knees slightly pointed out, 45 degrees out, to help activate more of your inner thigh muscles and your VMOs. This is an excellent variation if you're a runner or if you have strong IT bands that overpower your legs and like to pull your knees out. You're gonna notice that most people when they squat and their knees pinch in, you're gonna see that a lot when people squat. They go down and their knees roll in a regular squat position. It's because their inner thighs are weak. Whether her feet are straight or whether her feet are pointing out, knees pinching in is a poor sign of inner thigh weakness and super strong IT bands. So the Sumo Squat's a great way to fix that muscle imbalance by actually focusing exclusively on pushing the knees and toes out and activating that VMO inner thigh muscle group the entire time, making sure the knees still stay behind the toes. Fundamentally, everything's the same, but actively focusing on keeping the knees following the toes in that outward angle. Single leg or pistol squats are a great variation for squats if you have any sort of muscular imbalances in your legs that allow you to shift your weight more directionally to one side than the other. We always like to start with the leg that is weaker. So if you notice my pistol or single leg squat, I try to keep the same form and same posture with my hip hinge back. I can always hold a weight on my chest to make it more difficult. But when I get to the bottom of my squat, my knee stays over my ankle and stays behind my toes while this leg freely floats in the air. As I go down, focusing on emphasizing keeping my weight on one leg, keeping the weight on the heels, still hinging back with my hips to start the movement, and then always actively squeezing my butt forward when I come up with the movement. Hips back, good posture, hips forward. If you're not using a weight and you'd like some more balance, you can stick your arms out for some extra balance. Just make sure you don't round your shoulders forward. Always keep your chest up, good posture, then start the movement with your hips. Once you've mastered that balance, then you can add some weight to your chest. Once you've mastered the bodyweight squat, you're ready to start adding some weight. And I'm going to show you the first variation of back squats. And there's a couple different ways to do back squats depending on the bar positioning and your goals. The first one is the traditional squat, or if you go very deep, the Olympic squat. The bar positioning on this one is typically right above the traps, with the palm knuckles facing up, elbows back, so the bar is locked into position. Fairly close grip with the bar. You can choose your stance here, feet straight, or slight sumo squat, which is my personal preference for my goals currently. As I go down, I keep my head neutral. I always try to use a mirror, keep your eyes in the mirror, hinge back with your hips, and keep the knees following the toes. At the top, we always engage the glutes, squeeze your butt forward. Now if you're going very deep into the squat, now we're getting into our Olympic squats where our knees do hinge forward just a little bit more at the bottom of the squat. The Olympic squat, you always go below parallel, but if your goals are just to build your legs and glutes and to keep your knees and back just a little bit safer, most people just want to do the parallel squat where you stop with your thighs parallel to the ground. That's your barbell back squat. The other variation of squats is geared more towards power and power lifters. So you're going to notice the bar positioning is just a little bit lower on my neck. Right below my traps, where that little crease is. This variation allows for more power and involves your lower back muscles a whole lot more than the traditional squat. You're gonna notice there's gonna be much more of a pelvic tilt as I go down, putting a lot more force on my lower back while still activating my glutes and quads. This allows for more force, more power, more of a pelvic tilt. And again, I do not recommend these unless your goals are strictly powerlifting and increasing power to keep your back and knees safe. If you experience any type of lower back stiffness, I highly recommend front squats as a different variation. You can use a bar or you can use kettlebells if you lack the wrist flexibility to hold the bar. The great thing about front squats is there isn't a whole lot of weight or load bearing on the spine and putting strain on the lower back. Instead, it's sitting in the front of the body, allowing you to activate your core and abdominal muscles just a little bit more. Pick your favorite stance. You can keep your toes straight, narrow, or your sumo stance. And then everything else is the same fundamentally. Stick your butt out, hips back, squeeze your butt forward at the top. Again, the weight's sitting in front of the body, allow you to activate your core and abdominal muscles just a little bit more without putting a lot of strain on the lower back. For those of you advanced squatters really trying to get a boost in your stabilizing muscles in your legs, the Bosu squat is a great variation for that, with or without weight. I'll show you a Bosu squat. There's two ways to get on the ball. One variation, you step on the outside, lean the ball into the floor, and then you bring your other foot on nice and slow until your feet are in good position to squat. When you step off, lean to the side and step your foot behind. If you're worried about safety and balance, do these squats next to a wall or somewhere where you can catch yourself just in case. The second way you can get on the Bosu ball to squat is stepping your foot directly in the middle, stepping your other foot right next to it, and adjusting your feet position from there. The kettlebell sits right on top of my chest. Weight still on the heels on the Bosu ball, so as I squat down, I'm still not hinging forward with my knees. I always want to start a squat motion with my hips, sticking my hips back, keeping the weight on my heels, allowing myself to sit into a deep squat while trying to keep the ball parallel to the floor, not tilting it forward or backwards. If it does tilt forward or backwards and you're doing everything right, make sure your feet positioning is right in the middle of the ball. You can always start this movement by doing a hip hinge into a little squat, working your way back up until you build the range of motion and stabilization needed to perform a full squat. And that's your Bosu squat.
Vicious.